The chiffon of my dress made a soft whisper against the hardwood floor as I paced the bride's room at the Brooklyn winery. 16 times I walked that path, I counted. 16 steps from the window overlooking North 5th Street to the door where my maid of honor, Jess, kept checking her phone like it was a lifeline. "Nothing," she said, not looking up. "Okay." I smoothed the front of my dress. The bodice had tiny pearl beads I'd sewn on myself during 3 sleepless weeks. My fingertips found them now, tracing each one like a rosary. "Hail Mary, full of grace. I'm not even Catholic. Clara." Jess's voice had that careful tone people use when they're about to say something you don't want to hear. "The ceremony was supposed to start 20 minutes ago. I know what time it was supposed to start. I'm just saying, I know what you're just saying." Through the wall, I could hear the string quartet playing the prelude music. They were on their 3rd pass through the Pachelbel canon. The cellist was going to kill me. She'd already texted Jess asking if they should take a break, and Jess had texted back, "Just keep playing," with a face emoji that was either crying or laughing. I couldn't tell which. My phone lay face up on the vanity table. Black screen. Silent. I'd checked it 47 times since my mother's last text at 9:14 that morning. "Running late. Traffic is a nightmare. Save us seats. XO. That was 3 hours and 22 minutes ago." "There's traffic," I said. "Clara. From Connecticut on a Saturday? The Merritt Parkway is basically a parking lot. You know how many times I've sat in that—" "Clara, stop." I stopped. Jess crossed the room and took both my hands in hers. She has these warm, capable hands. She's a physical therapist. She fixes people for a living. Right now she was trying to fix me. "Your parents live an hour and 45 minutes away without traffic," she said. "Even if they left at 9, they'd be here by 11. It's almost 12:30. Maybe they stopped for coffee. Babe? Or gas, or—" "Clara, look at me." But I couldn't look at her. Because if I looked at her, I'd see the truth in her eyes. And if I saw the truth, I'd have to admit that my parents, my own mother and father, had decided not to come to my wedding. And that was impossible. Because parents come to their children's weddings. That's just what they do. It's a law of nature, like gravity or the way bread always lands butter side down. You don't wake up on your wedding day and think, I wonder if my mom will bother showing up. "I'm going to call them again." I reached for my phone. "You've called them 12 times. 13's my lucky number." The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail. Again. My mother's voice, bright and bubbly. "Hi, you've reached Karen Holcomb. So sorry I missed you. Leave a message and I'll get back to you faster than you can say, 'Pass the Chardonnay.'" Beep. "Mom, it's me. Again. We're holding the ceremony for you. Everyone's here. Just call me when you get this. Please. I love you." I hung up and stared at my reflection in the vanity mirror. The makeup artist had done my eyes with this soft gold shadow that made them look huge and luminous. My mother had taught me how to do my makeup when I was 13. Always blend up, never down. And for God's sake, don't skimp on mascara. Where was she? Daniel appeared in the doorway. My soon-to-be husband. His tux fit him perfectly, broad shoulders, narrow waist, that little patch of gray at his temples that made him look distinguished instead of old. He'd been pacing in the men's room for the past half hour, Jess told me. Now he crossed the room and pulled me into his arms without saying a word. He smelled like soap and nervous sweat and the faintest hint of bourbon. Someone must have slipped him a flask. "They're not coming," I said into his chest. "We don't know that." "Yes, we do. Sweetheart. My sister got engaged last week." The words came out flat, like they'd been sitting in my throat for 7 days, just waiting to drop. Did I tell you that? My perfect, brilliant doctor sister who's going to cure cancer or save orphans or whatever the hell she does, she finally got a ring on her finger. After 6 years of dating the human golden retriever she met at Yale. And my parents are thrilled. My mom called me crying. Actual tears of joy. She said, "Clara, it's finally happening. Our family is complete." Daniel's arms tightened around me. And I actually thought, that maybe this would be okay. Because now we'd both be married. Me first, technically, but who's keeping score? We'd be equals. 2 daughters, both settled. Finally. "They're idiots," Daniel said. "Your whole family. A bunch of blind idiots." "No, they're not." I pulled back and looked at him. "They're not idiots. They have a picture in their head of how things are supposed to be. And I don't fit in it." The first time I understood that was 12 years ago. I was 16, sitting at the dinner table, and I announced I'd gotten a B+ on my history paper. My mother smiled, that tight, polite smile she used with strangers, and said, "That's nice, honey. Your sister got accepted to Yale today." Not congratulations, not I'm proud of you, just an erasure, like I'd never spoken at all. 4 years later, I graduated from community college with an associate's degree in graphic design. My parents didn't come to that ceremony either. Too far, my mother said, and traffic is always terrible on a Tuesday. My sister graduated from Yale summa cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa, with a double major in neuroscience and something else I can't remember. My parents threw her a party at the country club. Open bar, catered sliders, a photo slideshow set to "Here Comes the Sun." I went. Of course I went. I stood in the corner with a plastic cup of champagne and watched my mother hold my sister's face in her hands and say, "I always knew you'd be extraordinary." "I always knew you'd be ordinary," I imagined her saying to me. "I always knew you'd be fine, just fine, perfectly, unremarkably fine." "Clara." Daniel tipped my chin up so I had to meet his eyes. "I don't care if they come. I don't care if your whole family comes. I'm marrying you. Right now. Today. And if we have to walk down that aisle with just Jess and Mike and the caterer as witnesses, I'm still going to spend the rest of my life making you happy, okay?" I nodded. I even smiled. But there was something cold and hard forming in my chest. A little knot of ice that hadn't been there before. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." Jess checked her phone one last time. Still nothing. Then nothing it is. I walked down the aisle on the arm of my Uncle Frank, my father's younger brother, the family disappointment who'd had the nerve to become a carpenter instead of a lawyer. He squeezed my hand when we reached the altar and whispered, "Their loss, kiddo. You look beautiful." The ceremony was short, sweet. Daniel cried when he said his vows, which made me cry, which made Jess cry, which made the cellist lose her place and have to start over. It was perfect in every way except for the 2 empty seats in the 3rd row. During the reception, I drank too much champagne and danced with my uncle and let my new husband spin me around until I was dizzy. I didn't look at my phone. I didn't check for messages. I didn't think about my parents at all. That's a lie. I thought about them constantly, but I pretended I didn't. At midnight, Daniel carried me over the threshold of our new apartment, a 1-bedroom in Crown Heights, with a leaky faucet and a radiator that clanked like a dying robot. We fell into bed still wearing our clothes and slept until noon. When I finally checked my phone, there was a single text from my mother. "So sorry we couldn't make it. Your father wasn't feeling well. Hope you understand. We'll celebrate soon. XOXO. I read it 3 times. Then I screenshotted it, filed it in a folder I labeled Receipts, and didn't respond. That was 3 years ago. My parents live in a town called Fairfield, Connecticut, which is exactly as white and wealthy and aggressively charming as it sounds. Their house is a colonial revival on a street called Hickory Lane, which has no hickory trees, but does have a homeowners association that sends passive-aggressive letters about lawn maintenance. I hadn't been back since the wedding, but my sister, Margot, she insists now, like she's a character on a CW show, posted on Instagram religiously. And I followed her. Not because I wanted to see her life, but because I couldn't not look. Like picking at a scab, like pressing on a bruise. Her feed was a masterclass in aspirational living. There was the engagement photo in Central Park. She wore white, naturally, even though she wasn't the bride yet. The bachelorette party in Nashville, matching cowboy boots, multiple brunches, a video of her doing shots off a mechanical bull. The bridal shower at the Fairfield Country Club, my mother in pastel pink, beaming, arranging flowers in a mason jar centerpiece. And then the wedding. Oh, the wedding. It was at some vineyard in the Hudson Valley that cost more per plate than I made in a week. My mother posted 79 photos on Facebook, which my Aunt Cheryl screenshotted and sent to me with the caption, "Looks like a beautiful day. Wish you could have been there." I could have been there. They just hadn't invited me. Well, that's not entirely true. I was invited, technically. A save the date arrived in my mailbox 6 months before the wedding, addressed to Clara and Daniel in my sister's perfect calligraphy. I put it on the fridge and waited. The real invitation never came. 3 months before the wedding, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. "Clara, sweetie. Just checking in about Margot's wedding. We're finalizing the guest list and, well, you know how venues are with numbers. It's just so tight. Margot wanted to invite everyone, obviously, but we had to make some tough choices. And since you and Daniel already had your own wedding, We thought maybe you'd understand that this is Margot's day and she should have her friends there and… Anyway. Call me. Love you. I didn't call. I also didn't go to the wedding. Not because I was bitter, okay? Not just because I was bitter, but because Daniel and I had planned a trip to Iceland months before, and the flights were non-refundable. We stood on a black sand beach under the northern lights while my sister walked down an aisle lined with roses, and I told myself I felt nothing. Another lie. The point is, I watched. From afar. I watched my sister become the daughter my parents always wanted, and I watched my parents bask in her reflected glow like flowers turning toward the sun. And then, 6 months after the wedding, I watched it all start to crumble. It began with a Facebook post from my mother, which my Aunt Cheryl also screenshotted and sent to me. Feeling so blessed to have both my girls home for the holidays. So proud of the women they've become. Family. Blessed. Grateful attached was a photo of me and Margot on the couch in my parents' living room, both of us smiling stiffly, neither of us touching. I hadn't been home for the holidays. I'd been in Brooklyn, making latkes from a box mix and watching Die Hard with Daniel. But there I was, digitally inserted into my sister's Christmas morning. I stared at the photo for a long time. The lighting was wrong, my shadow fell in the opposite direction from everyone else's, and I was wearing the same sweater I'd worn in a photo from 3 years ago, the one my mother had taken at my engagement party and never posted. She'd photoshopped me into her perfect family picture. I laughed until I cried, then I cried until I couldn't breathe. Then I screenshotted the whole thing, added it to my receipts folder, and called my therapist. She's erasing me, I said, literally. She's erasing me from reality and replacing me with a version that fits her narrative. My therapist, a woman named Diane with gentle eyes and a master's degree in letting things go, said, "How does that make you feel?" Like I want to burn their house down. Besides that, I don't know, invisible. Like I could disappear completely and they'd just find someone else to stand in for me. A cardboard cutout. A mannequin. Have you considered talking to them about it? I hung up. Okay. I didn't actually hang up. I said, "Thank you, Diane, that's a helpful perspective." And then I called Daniel and ranted for 45 minutes about how therapy is a scam. And Diane doesn't understand what it's like to have parents who treat you like a supporting character in your own life. Daniel listened. He's good at that. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I don't know." "Do you want to confront them?" "I don't know." "Do you want to cut them off completely?" "I don't know." "Do you want to…" "I don't know, Daniel. I don't know what I want. I just want them to see me, for once. Just once. I want them to look at me and see someone real, not the disappointing version of my sister." Daniel was quiet for a moment, then he said, "You know they never will, right?" Yes, I knew. The first sign that something was wrong in the Holcomb household came not from my parents but from my sister. Margot called me on a Tuesday night in February. Not texted. Called. On the phone. Like we were characters in a 1990s teen drama. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. "Hello? Clara?" Her voice sounded strange, thinner than usual, less polished. "Hey, it's me." "I know. What's wrong?" "Why does something have to be wrong? Can't I just call my little sister to say hi?" "We haven't spoken in 8 months." "Has it been that long?" "Margot." A pause. I could hear traffic in the background, the honk of a taxi, the rumble of a subway. She wasn't at home in Connecticut. She was in the city. "Can we meet for coffee?" she asked. "Tomorrow? There's something I need to talk to you about." I almost said no. Every instinct told me to say no. But there was something in her voice, something fragile and uncertain that I'd never heard before. "Fine," I said. "There's a place on Myrtle Avenue called Milkflower, 11 o'clock. I'll be there." She hung up. I stared at my phone for a long time, then went to find Daniel. "My sister wants to meet for coffee." He looked up from his book. "Which one?" "The only one I have." "Is she dying?" "I don't think so." "Then why?" "I don't know." "Are you going to go?" "I don't… Yes. I'm going." Daniel marked his page and set the book aside. "Do you want me to come with you? Sit at another table? Pretend I'm not there?" I considered it. The idea of having backup, of someone to witness whatever was about to happen, was deeply appealing, but this was something I needed to do alone. "No, but thank you. Call me if you need me. I don't care what time it is." I kissed his forehead and went to bed, where I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and trying to imagine what my sister could possibly want. The next morning was gray and cold, the kind of February day that makes you question every life choice that led you to live somewhere with seasons. I walked to Milkflower through spitting rain, my boots splashing through puddles, my hands shoved deep into my coat pockets. Margot was already there. She sat at a table by the window, a half-empty latte in front of her, her phone face down on the table. She looked different. Not bad, exactly. Just less. Less polished, less perfect. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail instead of its usual sleek blowout. She wore no makeup. Her sweater had a small hole at the cuff. I ordered a black coffee and sat down across from her. "You look terrible," I said. She laughed, a real laugh, not the practiced tinkle she used at parties. "Thanks, you look great. Marriage agrees with you." "It does." An awkward silence. We'd never been good at small talk. When we were kids, we'd communicated through a series of eye rolls and slammed doors. As adults, we'd communicated through our mother. "How's Daniel?" she asked. "Good. How's—" I almost said what's his name, but I remembered. Just barely. "How's Trevor?" Margot's face flickered. "We're separated." "Oh. Yeah. I'm sorry." "Are you?" Was I? I honestly didn't know. Trevor was fine. Boring and bland and aggressively mediocre, but fine. He made my sister happy, or at least he'd made her look happy, which was essentially the same thing in our family. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I don't know how I feel about anything when it comes to you." Margot nodded like she'd expected that. She wrapped both hands around her mug and stared into it like it held the answers to the universe. "He cheated on me," she said. "With his residency coordinator, a 47-year-old woman named Brenda who wears turtlenecks and smells like lavender." "Jesus." "Yeah. How did you find out?" "The way everyone finds out." I looked at his phone. She laughed again, but this one was bitter. 6 years together. 6 years of being the perfect couple, the perfect future, the perfect everything, and he couldn't keep his dick in his pants for the 6 months we've been married. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated, see? Even the perfect sister isn't so perfect after all. But mostly I just felt sad. For her. For the little girl she'd been, the one who'd always done everything right and still ended up here. "Does Mom know?" Margot's expression shuddered. "I told her last week." "And?" "She said I need to work it out. That marriage is about compromise and everyone makes mistakes, and I shouldn't throw away 6 years over one indiscretion." Margot's voice cracked. "She said maybe I wasn't giving him enough attention, that I've been so focused on my research that I've been neglecting his needs." "Oh, Margot." "She blamed me, Clara. My husband cheats on me and my mother blames me." I reached across the table and took her hand. It was cold and small in mine. I couldn't remember the last time I'd held my sister's hand. Maybe never. "What did Dad say?" "Dad said whatever Mom told him to say." She wiped her eyes with her free hand. "He's never had an original thought in his life." That was true. My father existed in my mother's orbit like a moon, reflecting her light, following her gravitational pull. I couldn't remember him ever disagreeing with her about anything important. "So now what?" I asked. "Now I don't know." Margot pulled her hand back and wrapped it around her mug again. "I moved out. I'm staying with a friend from residency. Trevor keeps texting me, and Mom keeps calling me, and I don't know what to do." "What do you want to do?" "I want to disappear. I want to move to another country and change my name and never talk to any of them again." "Sounds reasonable." Margot laughed, wet and surprised, like she hadn't expected to find anything funny ever again. "You always were the sensible one." "No, I was the invisible one. There's a difference." She looked at me then. Really looked at me, in a way she never had before. Like she was seeing me for the first time. "I'm sorry," she said. "For everything. For letting them treat you like you didn't matter. For going along with it. For never standing up for you." I didn't respond. I couldn't. There were too many years between us, too many wounds, too many silent dinners where my accomplishments were mentioned in passing and hers were celebrated with champagne. "I know sorry doesn't fix it," she continued. "I know I was a terrible sister. But I'm telling you now, I see it. I see what they did to you, and I'm not going to be part of it anymore. Because now they're doing it to you." Margot flinched, but she didn't deny it. "Yeah," she said quietly, "because now they're doing it to me." After that coffee, something shifted. Margot and I started talking regularly. Not every day, but enough. She'd call me on her way home from the hospital, venting about Trevor's latest texts or our mother's latest voicemails. I'd listen, offer the occasional sardonic comment, and try not to feel like I was watching a train wreck in slow motion. Because that's what it was, a train wreck. My mother, it turned out, did not handle disappointment well. The first sign was a Facebook post. Family isn't always blood. It's the people who show up for you when things get hard. Grateful for my village. War blessed, Warner family. First attached was a photo of my mother with her book club, all of them holding glasses of white wine and smiling like they'd just cured cancer. That's about me, Margot said when I sent her the screenshot. She posted it after I told her I wasn't coming to Easter dinner. Are you coming to Easter dinner? No, I'm going to Trevor's parents' house in New Jersey. They've been surprisingly supportive. His mother cried when I told her. Actual tears. She said Trevor was an idiot and I deserved better. Wow. A mother-in-law with basic human decency. What's that like? Disorienting. I laughed. Margot laughed too, and for a moment it felt almost normal. Two sisters sharing a joke, commiserating about their ridiculous family. But the cracks kept spreading. My mother's social media presence became increasingly unhinged. There were posts about loyalty and forgiveness, posts about the importance of marriage, posts about how today's generation gives up too easily. Each one was a passive-aggressive masterpiece, a dagger wrapped in a Bible verse. And then, in April, came the post that broke something in me. It was a photo of my parents with Trevor, just the three of them, standing in my parents' kitchen, all of them smiling. My mother's arm around Trevor's waist, my father's hand on his shoulder, Trevor holding up a pie like he'd just won a blue ribbon at the county fair. The caption, "So grateful for our son-in-law. Some things are worth fighting for." Family, not such. Love wins. Sark forgiveness. I stared at it for a long time. Trevor. The cheater. The man who'd broken my sister's heart. My parents had chosen him. I called Margot immediately. Did you see it? I saw it. Her voice was flat, empty. I'm so sorry. Yeah. What are you going to do? I don't know. A pause. I called Mom to talk about it, and she said I was being dramatic. She said Trevor made a mistake and I needed to get over it. She said... Margot's voice broke. She said maybe this is why I was always the favorite, because I knew how to be grateful for what I had. What? Yeah? That's... Margot, that's insane. That's actual delusion. I know. You can't let her... I know, Clara, I know. A shaky breath. But she's my mother. She's the only mother I have. That stopped me cold. Because I knew exactly what she meant. I'd spent my whole life making excuses for them, explaining away their behavior, telling myself it wasn't that bad. They loved me. They just loved my sister more. And now my sister was learning the same lesson. Their love was conditional. It always had been. What are you going to do? I asked again. I don't know. But I need some time to think. I'll call you later. She hung up. I sat on my couch, holding my phone, staring at the wall. Daniel found me there an hour later. Clara, what's wrong? I showed him the post. He read it, scrolled through the comments, all variations of, "You're such a good mother-in-law," and "Family is everything," and handed the phone back to me. Your parents are sociopaths. I know. No, I mean actual clinical sociopaths. They have no empathy. They only care about appearances. They're literally incapable of seeing anyone else as a real person with real feelings. I know. Clara. He sat down next to me and took my hands. You know this isn't your fault, right? None of it. Not the wedding, not the way they've treated you, not what they're doing to Margot now. This is who they are. It has nothing to do with you. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But somewhere in my chest, that cold knot was growing. The idea came to me in May, during a sleepless night when I should have been working on a website redesign for a client who kept asking me to make the logo pop more. I was scrolling through my mother's Facebook page, a form of self-harm I'd developed over the years, when I saw a post that made me stop. So proud of our girl. Margot's research on pediatric epilepsy just got published in the New England Journal of Medicine. We always knew she'd change the world. NijM. Proud parents. Blessed. The post had 347 likes and 89 comments. It was a masterpiece of maternal pride, a monument to my sister's achievements. And it was completely false. Margot's research hadn't been published in the NEJM. It had been accepted for a poster presentation at a conference in Chicago. A poster presentation. On a bulletin board. In a convention center. I knew this because Margot had told me herself, 2 days ago, in a voice that was trying very hard to sound excited about a poster presentation in Chicago. My mother had inflated it. Of course she had. She couldn't just be proud of her daughter, she had to be proud of the best daughter, the most accomplished daughter, the daughter who was going to change the world. I stared at the post for a long time, then I screenshotted it, filed it in receipts, and started thinking, what if I didn't just watch this time? What if I did something? Not revenge exactly. That felt too petty, too small. What I wanted was something bigger. I wanted them to see themselves the way I saw them. I wanted them to experience, just once, what it felt like to have your reality erased and replaced with something that looked perfect, but was actually hollow. I wanted them to feel it. The next morning, I called Margot. I have an idea, I said, and I need you to hear me out before you say no. Okay? You know how Mom has been posting all this fake stuff about you? Unfortunately, yes. What if we gave her something real to post about? A pause. I don't follow. What if you actually got published in the NEJM? Margot laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd heard from her in months. Clara, I'm a third-year resident. I don't have time to publish in the NEJM. I barely have time to sleep. No, I know. I'm not talking about actually publishing. I'm talking about making it look like you did. Another pause. Longer this time. What exactly are you suggesting? I told her. It started small. A fake acceptance email from the NEJM, carefully crafted to look legitimate. A screenshot of a fabricated journal page with Margot's name on it. A few well-placed comments on my mother's posts from fake accounts saying, OMG, is that the NEJM? Margot's so amazing. My mother predictably ate it up. Within a week, she'd made 3 more posts about Margot's groundbreaking research. She'd tagged the NEJM's official account, which of course didn't respond. She'd started planning a party to celebrate. You're sure this is legal? Margot asked during one of our calls. It's not illegal. It's performance art. Performance art that could get me sued. It won't. Trust me. The amazing thing was how easy it was. People see what they want to see. My mother wanted to see her daughter as a world-famous researcher, so that's what she saw. She never questioned the fake email. Why would she? She never looked too closely at the screenshot. Why would she? It fit her narrative perfectly. And then, in June, the real NEJM published an article about ethical issues in medical research. My mother, bless her narcissistic heart, commented on it. So proud of my daughter Margot Holcomb, whose work in this area has been groundbreaking. Check out her recent publication. The NEJM account replied, We have no record of a publication by that name. Can you provide a citation? I saw it happen in real time. My mother's comment. The NEJM's reply. The sudden silence. And then, 3 hours later, my phone rang. It was my mother. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Not to be dramatic. Okay, a little to be dramatic, but because I wanted to compose myself. I wanted to sound calm, measured, unconcerned. Hi, Mom. Clara. Her voice was sharp, clipped. Have you seen what's happening on Facebook? I don't really check Facebook much anymore. Too toxic. The NEJM just commented on my post. They said Margot never published with them. They said... She stopped. I could hear her breathing, fast and shallow. Clara, what's going on? I don't know what you're talking about. Your sister's publication, the one I've been posting about. They're saying it's not real. Huh, that's weird. Clara. Her voice dropped, became something I'd never heard before, uncertain, almost scared. Did you know about this? Know about what? Did you do something? Mom, I'm a graphic designer in Brooklyn. What could I possibly have to do with the New England Journal of Medicine? A long pause. I could picture her standing in her pristine kitchen, one hand gripping the marble countertop, the other holding her phone. Her nails would be perfectly manicured, her hair perfectly styled. She would look exactly like the woman in the Facebook photos, beautiful, composed, in control. But her voice betrayed her. Margot won't answer my calls. Trevor says he doesn't know anything. Your father is useless. And now? She stopped again. Clara, people are commenting. They're saying terrible things. They're saying I made it up. They're saying Margot is a fraud. Mom! What? I have to go. Daniel's calling me from the other line. Clara, don't you dare! I hung up. Then I sat on my couch, in my little apartment in Brooklyn, and I laughed until I cried. The party was supposed to happen on June 15th. My mother had planned it for weeks, a garden party at the country club to celebrate Margot's achievement. She'd sent invitations, evites because she was modern, to everyone in her address book. She'd ordered custom napkins that said, Dr. Margot Holcomb, changing the world one neuron at a time. She'd hired a caterer and a photographer and a string quartet. By June 14th, she'd canceled everything. The Facebook post announcing the cancellation was a masterpiece of passive aggression. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we've decided to postpone our celebration of Margot's research. Sometimes the people we love make choices we don't understand. We're choosing to focus on the positive and trust that everything happens for a reason. Family, trust, the journey. God Shah's plan. The comments were brutal. What happened? I thought she published in NEJM? So disappointed. I already bought a gift. This is so weird. Is everything okay? My mother didn't respond to any of them. But she did call me. 7 times. I didn't answer. She called Margot. Margot didn't answer either. She called my father, who apparently suggested that maybe they should just wait and see what happens. This was, according to Margot, the first time my mother had ever hung up on him. She's losing it, Margot said when we talked that night. Like, actually losing it. She called me crying, actual tears. I've never heard her cry before. What did she say? She said everyone hates her. She said people are talking about her at the club. She said she doesn't know what to do. How did that make you feel? Margot was quiet for a moment. Honestly, it felt amazing, and then it felt terrible. And now I don't know how I feel. That's called ambivalence. My therapist talks about it a lot. Your therapist sounds helpful. She is. You should get one. I think I need one. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, connected by phone lines and shared history, and the strange new bond of having watched our mother's carefully constructed world crumble. What do we do now? Margot asked. Nothing. Nothing? We sit back and watch. This isn't over. The thing about a carefully constructed image is that once it cracks, it doesn't just break, it shatters. And the pieces are sharp. My mother's social media presence, once a gleaming monument to family perfection, became a battlefield. Every post was met with questions. Every comment section turned into an interrogation. Is Margot okay? What really happened with the NEJM? I heard Trevor moved out. Is that true? My mother tried everything. Deflection, denial, outright lies. Nothing worked. The more she posted, the more people asked. The more she tried to control the narrative, the more the narrative controlled her. And then, in July, the local paper ran a story. It wasn't a big story, just a small item in the community notes section of the Fairfield County Gazette. But someone had tipped them off. Someone had sent them screenshots of my mother's Facebook posts, along with the NEJM's reply. The headline, Local Woman's Claims of Daughter's Medical Publication Debunked. It was beautifully written, factual, restrained, and absolutely devastating. My mother, the paper reported, had been publicly celebrating her daughter's purported achievement in the New England Journal of Medicine for weeks before the journal confirmed that no such publication exists. The story included quotes from sources close to the family, Margot, via a burner email, expressing concern about Mrs. Holcomb's apparent disconnection from reality. By the time the story ran, my mother had already deleted her Facebook account. But it was too late. The screenshots lived on. The comments lived on. The shame lived on. My father called me for the first time in 2 years. Clara. His voice was tired, defeated. It's your father. Hi, Dad. Your mother is... she's not doing well. I'm sorry to hear that. She won't leave the house. She won't talk to anyone. She just sits in the dark and stares at the wall. That sounds hard. Clara. A pause. Did you have anything to do with this? I considered lying. I considered denial. But what was the point? What exactly are you asking me, Dad? The NEJM thing, the paper, all of it. Did you... He stopped. Did you do this to us? I thought about it. All those years of being invisible. All those holidays where my presence was noted but not celebrated. All those moments when I'd watched my parents pour their love into my sister like she was the only child who mattered. And then, when that love finally turned conditional, when my sister finally fell from grace, they'd chosen the cheater over their own daughter. I thought about my wedding day, the empty seats, the text message, the 3 years of silence that followed. And I thought about my mother's Facebook posts, the photoshopped family pictures, the fake publications, the desperate, pathetic need to be seen as perfect. "I didn't do anything to you, Dad," I said. "I just stopped protecting you from the truth." "What does that mean?" "It means you spent 40 years building a house of cards. I just opened a window." He didn't respond. I could hear him breathing, shallow, uncertain breaths. "I have to go, Dad. Tell Mom I hope she feels better." "Clara." I hung up. They showed up at my apartment on a Sunday in August. I knew they were coming because my mother had texted me from a new number. Her old one had been compromised, she said, by all the negative energy in her life. "We need to talk, in person, please." "Mom?" I didn't respond, but I also didn't block the number. So when the doorbell rang at 2:47 on a humid Sunday afternoon, I wasn't entirely surprised. Daniel looked at me. I looked at him. "I can get rid of them," he said. "No, I've been waiting for this." I opened the door. My mother looked old. That was my first thought. She'd always been so carefully preserved, dyed hair, regular facials, just enough Botox to smooth the lines without freezing the expression. But now she looked like someone had let the air out of her. Her skin was gray. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She wore no makeup, which I'd never seen before in my life. My father stood behind her, looking equally diminished. He'd lost weight. His shirt hung on him like it belonged to someone else. "Clara," my mother's voice cracked. "Thank you for seeing us." "I didn't say I'd see you. I just opened the door." "Can we come in?" I stepped aside. They walked into my apartment like tourists entering a foreign country, curious, uncertain, slightly afraid. My mother's eyes swept over everything: the thrifted furniture, the framed prints on the walls, the collection of houseplants on the windowsill. I could see her cataloging it, filing it away, trying to understand how her daughter lived. "Nice place," my father offered. "Thanks. We like it." An awkward silence. Daniel appeared in the kitchen doorway, coffee mug in hand. "Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" My mother shook her head. My father said, "Coffee would be great, thanks." Daniel disappeared. My mother and I stood in my living room, facing each other like opponents in a chess match. "Sit down, Mom. You look tired." She sat. My father sat next to her on the couch. I took the armchair across from them, maintaining a careful distance. "We came to apologize," my mother said. I waited. "We've done a lot of thinking these past few months, about our family, about you and Margot, about—" she swallowed, "about how we've treated you." Still waiting. "I know we haven't been the best parents. I know we made mistakes. But we love you, Clara. We've always loved you. We didn't show it the right way." "Which way did you show it?" My mother blinked. "What?" "You said you didn't show it the right way. I'm asking which way you did show it." I don't understand." "You missed my wedding." My voice was calm, steady. "You didn't come to my college graduation. You've never visited this apartment, and I've lived here for 4 years. You forgot my birthday 3 years in a row. You photoshopped me into a family picture because you couldn't be bothered to actually invite me to Christmas." I leaned forward slightly. "Tell me, Mom, which part of that was the love part? I'm trying to understand." My mother's face crumpled. Crumpled, like paper in a fist. Tears spilled down her cheeks, leaving tracks in the dusting powder she'd applied that morning. "We were wrong," she whispered. "We were so wrong. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Okay? That's it? Just okay? What else do you want me to say?" My father cleared his throat. "Clara, your mother is trying to apologize. The least you could do is—" "The least I could do?" I turned to him. "The least I could do? Dad, you haven't spoken to me in 2 years. Not one phone call, not one text. You let Mom handle everything, and when she hurt me, you looked the other way. You don't get to tell me what the least I could do is." He shut his mouth. Daniel appeared with coffee for my father, set it on the table, and retreated to the kitchen. I could feel him hovering just out of sight, ready to intervene if needed. "Clara." My mother reached toward me, then thought better of it. "What can we do? How can we make this right?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. Nothing, I said finally. Nothing? There's nothing you can do. You can't go back and come to my wedding. You can't unsend those texts. You can't unsay the things you've said. You can't unchoose Trevor over Margot. You can't undo 40 years of making me feel like I didn't matter. I stood up. So there's nothing you can do, except maybe leave. My mother stared at me. The tears kept coming, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no satisfaction, just a vast, empty calm. Please, she whispered, please give us a chance. We're your parents. And I'm your daughter. I walked to the door and opened it. You should have remembered that sooner. They left. I closed the door behind them and leaned against it, eyes closed, heart pounding. Daniel appeared and wrapped his arms around me. I buried my face in his chest and breathed. How do you feel? He asked. I don't know. That's okay? Is it? Yeah. He kissed the top of my head. It's okay not to know. A week later, Margot sent me a screenshot. It was my mother's Facebook page. She'd started a new account, no friends yet, no posts, but there was a profile picture. It was the three of us, me, Margot, and my mother, taken at my wedding 3 years ago, the one they didn't attend, except we were all there, somehow. Me in my dress, Margot in her maid of honor dress, my mother in a pale blue outfit I'd never seen before, photoshopped, again. But this time, the caption was different. My daughters, my heart. I don't deserve them, but I'm grateful for them every day, working on being better. Family. Grateful. Work in progress. I stared at it for a long time, then I screenshotted it, added it to my receipts folder, and called Margot. Did you see it? I saw it. What do you think? A pause. I think it's sad, and pathetic, and maybe a little hopeful? Hopeful? I don't know. She's trying, in her own messed up way. She's actually trying. Or she's just trying to save face. Maybe both. We sat with that for a moment. What do you want to do? Margot asked. Nothing. Nothing? For now, let's just wait and see. See if she actually changes. See if Dad grows a spine. See if they can become people worth knowing. And if they can't? I looked at the photo again, at my mother's desperate, hopeful face, at my sister's carefully edited smile, at myself, standing between them, finally visible. Then we have each other, I said, and that's more than we had before. Margot was quiet. When she spoke, her voice was thick. Yeah, she said, I guess it is. 6 months later. My mother texts me sometimes. Nothing big, just little things. A photo of a flower in her garden. A link to an article she thinks I'd like. A simple thinking of you. I don't always respond, but sometimes I do. We haven't seen each other in person since that day in my apartment. I'm not ready for that yet. Maybe I never will be. But Margot and I have dinner every other week. We talk about work, about life, about our mother. We're learning how to be sisters, really be sisters, after 30 years of being strangers. My father sent me a birthday card this year, handwritten. He said he was proud of me. I put it on the fridge. The receipts folder is still on my phone. 147 screenshots. 147 little wounds. I look at it sometimes when I need to remember why I keep my distance. But I don't add to it anymore. Some things don't need to be collected. Some things just need to be let go. Not forgiven exactly. Not forgotten. Just released. Like a breath held too long. Like a knot finally coming undone. The air in David's bridal smelled of synthetic fabric and desperation. A pleasant enough scent for a Tuesday afternoon, I guess, if you're into that sort of thing. I was there under duress, a hostage in a pastel-colored prison, clutching a fluted glass of cheap champagne that was already warm. No, 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 turn around again, my mother Patricia commanded, her voice a nasal whine that could strip paint. She was studying my sister Bonnie in the triple mirror, her own reflection a testament to a lifetime of sun damage and disappointment. Her face, etched with deep lines, seemed to sag a little more every time I saw her, as if gravity was personally offended by her existence. Bonnie, the bride-to-be, was preening. She's always been the favorite, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Today, she was encased in a sample size 10 gown that was clearly a size too small. The fabric pulled taut across her upper arms, creating little bulges of flesh above and below the lace sleeves, and her thighs strained against the heavy satin skirt. It's just "A little snug in the arms, Mom," Bonnie murmured, her eyes wide with fake concern in the mirror. My father, Mark, was parked in a velvet armchair, his bald head gleaming under the fluorescent lights, scrolling through his phone with the enthusiasm of a man waiting for a root canal. He grunted in response, not even looking up. And then, the spotlight swung to me. My mother's eyes, small and beady, flicked from Bonnie's reflection to my actual body, slumped in a chair against the wall. "Well, we can have the seamstress let the sleeves out a bit," she said, waving a dismissive hand. Then, with the subtlety of a sledgehammer, she added, "At least we don't have to worry about your alterations, Chloe." I felt my stomach clench. "Here it comes. You'll just need to find something that accommodates your situation," she continued, her voice dripping with faux concern. "Something with good structure, maybe in a darker color. It's slimming." My situation. My situation was that I was a size 14. I was a graphic designer who spent most of her day at a desk and enjoyed cooking and eating food. I wasn't morbidly obese. I wasn't unhealthy, according to my last physical. I was just not a size 2. My father finally looked up from his phone. "Your mother's right, honey. It's Bonnie's big day. You don't want to look frumpy in the photos. You should really think about a program. We could even help pay for it, an early wedding gift." The cruelty wasn't in the words themselves, but in their casual delivery. It was the family sport, and I was the designated ball. I was 24 years old, with a career and an apartment, and they were still talking to me like I was a teenager who needed to be managed. "I'm a size 14, Dad," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. "I'm not exactly a circus act." "Don't be dramatic, Chloe," my mother snapped. "We're just looking out for you. Bonnie wants her wedding party to look cohesive. You'll be standing up there with all her friends from college. They're all so petite." Bonnie, still admiring her own strained reflection, didn't say a word. Her silence was the loudest endorsement of all. It was a pact, a silent agreement between the three of them. I was the problem. The drive home was a blur of their droning voices, constructing a whole wellness boot camp for me in the 3 months before the wedding. Keto, paleo, intermittent fasting, a trainer they saw on TV. They had it all figured out. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just felt a strange, cold clarity settle over me, like ice forming on a lake. I parked my car in front of my apartment and sat there for a long time staring at the dashboard. The hurt was there, a deep, familiar ache, but underneath it, something else was flickering to life. A tiny, white-hot ember of anger. They wanted me to change. They demanded it. They had no idea what they were asking for. The next morning, I called my dad. "I've thought about your offer," I said, my voice flat. I could almost hear him smile. "That's my girl. Knew you'd see reason." "I want it in writing." A pause. "What?" "An email. Formal. Stating that in exchange for me losing a significant amount of weight for Bonnie's wedding, you will pay for all related expenses. Gym membership, nutritionist, the works. And I want a specific timeline." "Chloe, that's ridiculous. We're your parents." "An email, Dad. Or the deal's off. I'll just show up as I am." 20 minutes later, it landed in my inbox. It was short, clinical, and insulting. It itemized the costs they would cover for the next 3 months, culminating in the goal of me fitting into a bridesmaid dress, at least 2 sizes smaller. It was signed, "Love, Mom and Dad." I printed it out. I folded it carefully and put it in the drawer of my nightstand. It wasn't a contract born of love. It was a receipt for their cruelty, and I was going to cash it in. The next 3 months were not about them. Not really. They paid for a top-tier gym with a personal trainer named Kai, a man whose biceps had their own gravitational pull. They paid for a registered dietitian, not a fad diet guru, who taught me about macros and metabolic health. I didn't starve myself. I learned to fuel my body. I threw myself into it with a discipline I didn't know I possessed. Every drop of sweat on the gym floor, every perfectly portioned meal, was a conversation with myself. You are not what they say you are. The weight began to fall off, but more importantly, my body began to change. The softness was replaced by lean muscle. My face, once round, developed angles I'd never seen before. The updates from home became background noise. My mother would call and coo, "How's the diet going, sweetie?" Bonnie would text photos of wedding favors with captions like, "Can't wait for you to see these in person. Hope you're fitting into something cute." They were checking in on their project. I sent them nothing. No progress pics, no updates. I just cashed their checks and went to work. And in the quiet moments, in my apartment, I'd look in the mirror. Not with vanity, but with a growing sense of power. The girl looking back at me had sharp, determined eyes. She was getting stronger. She was getting ready. 2 weeks before the wedding, my phone buzzed with a group text from my mother. Mom. Final dress fitting tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the bridal shop. Don't be late, Chloe. Bring your shoes. I stared at the screen for a full minute. The dress. The one that was supposed to be accommodating. The one I was supposed to squeeze into after their little experiment. I typed my reply and hit send before I could second-guess myself. Me. I won't be there. I'm not coming to the wedding. The response was immediate. A phone call. I let it ring to voicemail. Then another. Then a text from Bonnie, just a string of question marks. Then my father. Dad. Call your mother. Now. I turned my phone on silent and went for a run, my new muscles reveling in the movement. When I got back, I had 14 missed calls and a voicemail from my mother that was a masterpiece of escalating hysteria. Chloe, this isn't funny. You call me back this instant. We have paid for this dress. We have paid for everything. You are being incredibly selfish. Bonnie is in tears. Is this because of the weight thing? We were only trying to help you. You are ruining this family. I saved the voicemail. For the next 2 weeks, I was a ghost. I blocked their numbers. I deleted social media apps from my phone. I went to work. I trained. I cooked my own meals. And I slept like the dead. The silence was glorious. It was the first time in my life I hadn't been subjected to their noise. I imagined the chaos, the scrambling, the phone calls to other relatives, the story they'd concoct about how their unstable, ungrateful daughter had a meltdown and abandoned them. They would be the martyrs. I would be the villain. Let them. The anger that had been a tiny ember was now a steady, controlled flame. It wasn't hot and messy anymore. It was a forge, and I was tempering myself in it. The wedding was on a Saturday. I spent the day at a spa. A full day. Massage, facial, a salt scrub. I got my hair done in a sleek, modern cut that framed my new jawline. I had my makeup done, not to hide, but to highlight. I chose my outfit carefully. It wasn't a dress. It was a tailored blood-red jumpsuit. It was sophisticated, powerful, and it fit me like a glove, skimming over my toned arms and flat stomach. Heels that made me 5'10". I didn't go to the church. I went to the reception. I timed it. I walked in just as the DJ was announcing the bridal party for their grand entrance. I saw my family at the head table. Bonnie, her face flushed with happiness, her strapless gown doing her no favors, her arms looking particularly soft in the harsh uplighting. My mother, in a beaded lilac pantsuit, her saggy face pinched with the permanent worry lines of a control freak. My father, bald head shining, already looking bored. I walked towards them. People stared. A path seemed to clear. I saw the exact moment my father noticed me. His mouth went slack. He nudged my mother, who was mid-sip of her wine. She looked up. The wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. Her face, for a split second, was a perfect blank. Then, a cascade of emotions. Confusion, disbelief, and then horror. Not joy. Horror. Bonnie, following their gaze, finally saw me. Her smile didn't just fade, it collapsed. Her jaw went slack. I was 10 feet away. I was a stranger. I was the ghost at the feast. I stopped right in front of them. The music was still playing, a cheesy pop song, but the world felt silent. Chloe? My mother finally breathed, her voice a thin, reedy thing. You're here. I smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of my lips. Surprise. My father stood up, a clumsy, flustered movement. Well, look at you. We didn't think you were coming. You look great. Great. After everything, that was the word. My mother was still staring, her eyes scanning me from head to toe, cataloging the evidence of their successful project and finding it utterly repulsive. Bonnie just sat there, her hands gripping the edge of the table, her eyes wide and wet. She looked diminished. She looked frumpy next to me, and she knew it. The DJ announced the cake cutting. It was the perfect distraction, a wave of polite applause that pulled the attention away from our tableau. Bonnie was ushered away by my father, shooting me a look of pure, unadulterated hatred over her shoulder. My mother grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. Her face was a mask of barely controlled fury. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "You disappear for 2 weeks. You miss your sister's wedding, and you show up here looking like this, to upstage her?" I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back into her panicked eyes. I leaned in close, so only she could hear me. "You wanted me to change, Mom. You paid for it. You have a receipt in an email somewhere. I'm just the final product." I gently pried her fingers off my arm. "I'm not here to ruin her day. I'm just here to collect." I didn't sit at the family table. I found a seat at the bar, ordered a club soda with lime, and watched. I was a spectator at my own experiment. The whispers were constant. I could feel eyes on my back, hear the fragments of conversation. "Is that the sister? My God, she's stunning. I heard she wasn't even coming. Drama in the family. Bonnie must be furious. She looks like a bride, but next to that..." The cake was cut. The first dance happened. Bonnie and her new husband, a bland guy named Mike, swayed on the dance floor. Bonnie kept glancing over at me at the bar. Her smiles were brittle, her movements stiff. About an hour in, my parents cornered me. They flanked me at the bar, a united front. My father ordered a whiskey, his face red and uncomfortable. My mother was vibrating with suppressed rage. "We need to talk," my mother said, her voice low and sharp. "Outside, now." I shrugged and followed them to a quiet corner of the patio, away from the string lights and the music. The night air was cool. "What you did was unforgivable," my mother began immediately, jabbing a finger at my chest. "You missed the wedding. You put us through hell, and now you show up to make a mockery of your sister on her special day." "I'm not making a mockery of anything," I said calmly. "I'm just existing. You're the ones who seem to have a problem with it." "Don't you take that tone with me, young lady," my father snapped, finding his voice. "After everything we did for you, we paid for that fancy gym, that nutritionist, and this is how you repay us? With disrespect?" I laughed. It was a real laugh, surprising even me. "Disrespect? You want to talk about disrespect? You spent my entire life disrespecting me. You called me fat to my face. You made me the family joke. You didn't pay for that gym because you loved me. You paid for it because I was an embarrassment to you." "That's not true," my mother hissed, but her eyes darted away. "It's absolutely true," I continued, my voice dropping, becoming the sharp edge of a blade. "You know what's funny? All those years you spent picking me apart, all those comments, and look at you now." I looked directly at my mother, my gaze landing on the deep lines around her mouth and eyes. "You, with your saggy face from all those years of tanning beds and lectures, standing here telling me I'm disrespectful." Her mouth fell open. I turned to my father, my eyes flicking up to his gleaming scalp. "And you went bald before I was in high school. Did you ever find a program for that, Dad? Or was that just something you passed on to me, along with the tendency to store fat?" His face went from red to purple. I saved the best for last. Bonnie had crept up behind them, probably summoned by the rising tension. She stood there in her expensive gown, her arms crossed, her face a mask of fury. I looked right at her, at the soft, rounded shape of her upper arms, at her thick legs. "And Bonnie," I said, my voice soft and pitying, which made it so much worse. "The perfect bride. You look lovely tonight, really. It's a shame the dress is a little tight in the arms." The silence that followed was absolute. It was a vacuum where sound couldn't exist. I had taken every ounce of hurt they'd ever given me, every whispered insult, every public shaming, and I had forged it into a sword. And then I had run them all through with it. Bonnie burst into tears, a loud, gulping sob that cut through the quiet. My mother rushed to her, throwing her arms around her, shooting me a look of such pure hatred it should have burned me to ash. My father just stood there, his fists clenched, impotent. "You bitch!" Bonnie wailed, her mascara starting to run. "You absolute bitch! You did this on purpose! You got skinny just to ruin my wedding!" My mother was patting her back, cooing, "It's okay, baby. Don't listen to her. She's sick. She's jealous." "Jealous?" I repeated, the word tasting like acid. "Jealous of what, Mom? Of being the eternal project? Of never being good enough? Of having to listen to you two pick me apart while you worshipped her every burp? No, I'm not jealous. I'm just done." My father finally found his voice, a low, threatening growl. "You need to leave, now." "I'm going," I said, not moving. "But first, let's get one thing straight. You came to me 3 months ago. You demanded I change my body for this wedding. You wrote me a contract, remember? I have it. You paid for this. Every pound I lost, every muscle I built, it's on you. So don't you dare stand there and act like I'm the villain for succeeding. I reached into my small clutch purse. I pulled out a folded piece of paper. The email. I held it up so they could all see it. You can dish it out, but you can't take it. You wanted a new daughter. A thinner, more acceptable one. Well, here she is. I let the paper flutter to the ground at their feet. And she wants nothing to do with you. I turned my back on them, on my mother's sagging, hate-filled face, on my father's bald, flushed head, on my sister's chubby, tear-streaked cheeks, on all of it. I walked back through the reception, past the staring guests, past the DJ who had just started playing a slow song, and out the front door of the venue. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but my steps were steady. The cool night air hit my face, and it felt like freedom. I didn't look back. Not at the venue, not at my phone for the next 48 hours. I went home, peeled off the red jumpsuit, and slept for 12 hours straight. It was the sleep of the dead, or the sleep of the victorious. When I finally turned my phone on, it was a digital war zone. Dozens of texts, voicemails, and social media notifications. From my mother, "You are dead to us. I hope you're happy. You destroyed this family." From my father, "That was a cruel, disgusting thing you did. Don't ever contact us again." From Bonnie, "I will never forgive you for this. You're not my sister." There were texts from aunts and uncles, some supportive, some confused, some parroting my parents' narrative about how I'd lost it and made a scene. I read them all with a strange detachment. They felt like they were about someone else. I blocked them all, every single one who took their side. Months passed. I threw myself into my work. I kept training not for revenge, but because I loved the feeling of being strong. I started dating a guy from work, someone who looked at me like I was a person, not a project. The anger that had fueled me finally began to cool, leaving behind something harder and more durable: self-respect. I heard through the grapevine that Bonnie was already talking about a redo vow renewal for their 1-year anniversary. She wanted to lose the baby weight she'd put on. I heard my mother was telling people I'd had weight loss surgery, a story that made her feel better about the whole thing. I didn't care enough to correct it. Sometimes, late at night, I'd open the drawer in my nightstand and look at that printed email. It wasn't a receipt for cruelty anymore. It was the contract for my liberation. They had signed it, not knowing they were setting me free. They wanted me to change. And I did. I changed into someone they couldn't hurt anymore. That was the ultimate glow-up. Not the body, but the spine. And it was a shock they would never, ever recover from.
The first crack appeared on a Tuesday night, hidden beneath the glaze of a $42 bottle of Cabernet, and the laughter of women who had forgotten how to love without armor. I remember every detail of that evening with the hyper-real clarity that comes only in retrospect, when your brain realizes it was documenting evidence for a crime you didn't know was being committed. The way the rain tapped against the picture window like impatient fingers. The smell of garlic and rosemary clinging to my hands from the lamb I'd spent 3 hours preparing. The exact shade of burgundy on Jenna's lips as she leaned across my dining table and whispered poison into my wife's ear. Maya was radiant that night. She always was with an audience, a chameleon who absorbed the energy of a room and reflected it back, magnified. Her laugh came easier, her touches lingered longer, her eyes sparked with something that had been dimming in the quiet spaces between us. I noticed. I always noticed. But I told myself that's what marriage was. The ebb and flow of attention, the comfortable silences, the knowledge that you didn't need to perform for each other anymore. Her friends were the performance. Jenna, 41, divorced for 18 months after her husband Mark admitted to a 2-year affair with his administrative assistant. She'd lost 20 pounds since the separation and gained a permanent squint of suspicion, as if constantly scanning the horizon for incoming artillery. Chloe, 39, finalizing her second divorce. Her first husband she left because he was emotionally unavailable. Her second husband left her because, in his words, no man will ever be able to love you enough to fill the hole where your self-worth should be. Cruel, but from what I'd witnessed over 6 years of dinner parties and brunches, not entirely inaccurate. Stephanie, 43, the veteran, divorced for 4 years after catching her husband in a years-long emotional affair with a co-worker. She'd turned her bitterness into a brand, dispensing relationship advice with the authoritative venom of a survivor who believed she'd seen behind the curtain and found nothing but rot. They called themselves the Phoenixes, reborn from the ashes of their failed marriages. I called them, privately, the Witches' Coven. 3. women who gathered to stir cauldrons of resentment and feed on each other's suspicions. I was cleaning up after dinner, scraping plates into the compost bin, when I heard my name drift from the living room. The clink of wine glasses, the murmur of voices pitched for privacy, but caring just enough for the kitchen to catch. He's so present. Jenna's voice, that specific inflection that turned a compliment into a diagnosis. Isn't he, Maya? Always cooking, always home, doesn't have a life outside of you. He's great, Maya replied, soft, too soft, defensive in a way that suggested she'd been defending me all night. Don't let it fool you. Chloe's tone was the one she used when dispensing hard truths, as if skepticism was the only honest emotion. They're all great, until they're not. The second you get comfortable, they get complacent. Mark was a saint, brought me coffee in bed every morning for 10 years. Meanwhile, he was bending his personal trainer over the equipment after hours. That's not, Maya started. It's the quiet ones. Stephanie cut her off, her voice carrying the weight of hard-won tragedy. My ex-husband never gave me a reason to doubt him. That was the problem. I wasn't paying attention. I was so busy feeling secure that I didn't notice him checking out emotionally years before he checked out physically. By the time I thought to look, he was already gone. You have to keep them on their toes, Maya. You have to test the perimeter. I walked into the living room with a cheese board, aged Gouda, Manchego, a drizzle of honey. Test the perimeter? Sounds like a military strategy. Jenna's eyes locked onto mine. Cool. Assessing. It is, Liam. Marriage is a battlefield. You know that. The unspoken addendum hung in the air, especially from where we're sitting. I laughed it off. I crossed to Maya and kissed the top of her head, inhaling the familiar scent of coconut shampoo that had been part of my sensory landscape for 6 years. She tilted her head back and smiled up at me, and for a moment, everything felt solid. Good thing we're on the same team then. Later that night, I watched her getting ready for bed. She sat at her vanity, brushing her hair in slow, mechanical strokes, her phone face up beside her. I saw her glance at it, then at me in the mirror. Something flickered across her face, a calculation, quickly masked. She picked up the phone, typed something, and set it down again. You okay? I asked from the bed. Fine, just tired. Her smile was automatic, a reflex perfected over years. Long day. I reached for her hand when she slid under the covers. She let me hold it, but her fingers were limp. No reciprocal squeeze, no interlacing of fingers, just flesh occupying the same space. I should have asked more questions. I should have turned on the light and demanded to know what had shifted in her eyes. But I was tired too, and it was easier to blame the wine, the late hour, my own paranoid imagination. Looking back, that was the moment the wire was cut. Not with a dramatic snap, but with a quiet snip in the darkness. The first thread of the tightrope we'd been walking since our wedding day. I just didn't know I was already falling. The changes arrived like a slow bleed, imperceptible at first, then suddenly everywhere. It started with her phone. For 5 years, Maya's iPhone had lived on the kitchen counter like a household appliance. She'd leave it there while she showered, while we watched movies, while we made love. It was a thing, not a talisman. But sometime in the 3rd week of October, it migrated. First to her pocket, then to her palm, then to the nightstand, always face down, always within reach, always accompanied by a new vigilance in her eyes. I'd catch her looking at me over the screen, her expression unreadable. She'd smile when she saw me watching, but it was a beat too slow, a performance rather than a reflex. Who are you texting? I asked, one night, aiming for casual and missing by a mile. No one, just work. She turned the phone away, a movement so subtle it was almost elegant. Karen's quitting, so I'm picking up her accounts. It's chaos. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Maya had never given me a reason to doubt. That was the thing about trust. It wasn't something you guarded. It was something you forgot you were doing, like breathing. You only noticed it when something started cutting off the air. Then came the lingerie. I found the receipt crumpled in the pocket of her winter coat when I took it to the dry cleaners. My hand closed around the tissue-thin paper, and I almost threw it away without looking. But something made me open it. I stared at the numbers until they blurred. Maya hadn't worn anything new to bed in months. The last time we'd been intimate, she'd been in an old college t-shirt and threadbare pajama pants. I'd assumed she was tired, stressed, navigating that ebb and flow I'd convinced myself was normal. But someone was going to see that $389 emerald green bodysuit. Someone who wasn't me. I folded the receipt carefully and put it back in her pocket. I don't know why. Maybe I was already building a case. Maybe I just couldn't face the question of what it meant. The late nights started next. Working late became a refrain, repeated with diminishing eye contact. 7 p.m. became 8, became 9, became 10. Her texts grew shorter, the spaces between them longer. When she was home, she was elsewhere, present in body only, her mind orbiting some distant planet I couldn't access. I began documenting without realizing I was documenting the way she'd angle her body away from me when typing. The new perfume I found in her bag, something sharp and woody, not her usual floral. The way she'd come home and immediately shower as if washing off evidence. The worst was her eyes. She watched me constantly but not with guilt, with something closer to fascination, as if I were a specimen and she was waiting to see how I'd react to various stimuli. Would I notice the lingerie receipt? Would I ask about the late nights? Would I confront her? I didn't. I couldn't. Every question that rose to my lips died under the weight of what the answer might be. Because if I asked, and she confirmed what every instinct was screaming, then the life I'd built, the house, the future, the 6 years of shared history, would collapse, and I wasn't ready to live in the rubble. So I did nothing. I watched my wife become a stranger and said nothing. I smiled through dinners that felt like performances. I held her in bed while she stared at the ceiling. I swallowed my suspicion like a daily pill and pretended it was sustaining me. Then I saw them. Last Tuesday, a work dinner in the city that ended early. I decided to walk instead of taking an Uber, hoping the cold air would clear the fog in my head. I cut through a side street in the West Village, past the kind of wine bar, with exposed brick and candlelight, and windows that fog up from the heat of too many bodies pressed too close together. I stopped walking. Through the glass, distorted by condensation and my own disbelief, I saw my wife. She was sitting at a small table in the corner. Across from her was a man. He was handsome in that manufactured way, the stubble precisely trimmed, the shirt tailored, the smile practiced. He leaned across the table and said something. Maya threw her head back and laughed. It was her real laugh, the one that crinkled her nose and showed her back teeth and made her whole face luminous with joy. The laugh I thought was just for me. His hand moved across the table and covered hers. The city noise died. The traffic, the sirens, the conversations of pedestrians flowing past me, all of it sucked into a vacuum that opened in my chest. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I could only stand there on the cold sidewalk, watching my wife laugh with another man while his hand rested on hers like it belonged there. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes, probably. Long enough for my phone to buzz with a text I didn't check. Long enough for the cold to seep through my coat and settle into my bones. Long enough for the man to pull his hand back, for Maya to glance toward the window, for me to step back into the shadows before her eyes could find me. I went home. I sat in the dark living room and waited. At 11:17 p.m. I heard her key in the lock. She came in smelling of wine and that sharp woody cologne. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold, her eyes bright. "You're still up?" She dropped her bag on the chair. "Late meeting ran forever. I'm exhausted." I looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 6 years, this stranger wearing my wife's face, and felt something inside me calcify. The hurt was still there. A deep thrumming ache behind my ribs. But it was now encased in something hard and cold. Something that wouldn't break. "Get some sleep," I said. My voice sounded normal. "You must be tired." She kissed my cheek, her lips cool against my skin, and walked toward the bedroom. I watched her go and felt the last thread of hope snap. The next morning, I called a private investigator. David Costas was 28 years old, an aspiring actor who worked part-time as a personal trainer at Chloe's gym. He had a headshot on his website, a decent credit on a Law & Order episode from 2 years ago, and a Venmo history that showed 3 payments of $300 each from an account belonging to Chloe's LLC. The PI delivered the report in a plain manila folder, took my check without comment, and disappeared back into whatever shadows he'd emerged from. I sat in my office and read through the evidence of my wife's affair with the same clinical detachment I'd use to review a client's financial statements. David was hired on October 15th. The first date was October 22nd, a drink at a hotel bar in Midtown. The second was October 29th, dinner at a French bistro in the Village. The third was November 5th, the wine bar I'd stumbled upon. Each meeting was documented with photographs, timestamps, and receipts. My wife had paid a man to pretend to want her, to make me jealous, to test my perimeter. I read the report 3 times, waiting for the rage to come. It didn't. Waiting for the relief that would come from knowing she hadn't actually cheated. That didn't come either. What came instead was a cold, clarifying stillness, the kind that settles over a battlefield when the fighting is done, and all that's left is to count the dead. I went home early that day. I made coffee, 2 cups, the way she liked hers, with oat milk and a sprinkle of cinnamon. I arranged them on the kitchen island and waited. She walked in at 6:42, her face falling when she saw me sitting in the dark. "Liam, what are you doing home?" She dropped her bag, crossed to the island. "You made coffee?" "Sit down, Maya." Something in my voice stopped her. She looked at me, really looked, for the first time in weeks. Her face shifted through a series of micro-expressions, confusion, concern, a flicker of something that might have been excitement. She sat. I slid the manila folder across the island. It stopped precisely in front of her, nudging her coffee cup. "What's this?" "Open it." She did. I watched her eyes move across the first page, the second, the photographs. I watched the color drain from her face, then rush back in a hot flood. I watched her lips part, then close, then part again. For one perfect moment, I thought I saw guilt. Then she looked up at me and her face split into a radiant smile. "Oh, thank God." She pressed her hand to her chest, laughing with relief. "Liam, oh my God, I was so worried. I thought you'd never find out. We were starting to think we'd have to make it even more obvious." The words landed like stones in still water, ripples spreading outward, distorting everything. I couldn't finish the sentence. The words wouldn't form. "It's a prank, baby! A test!" She reached across the island for my hand. I pulled back. Her smile flickered, recovered. "Okay, I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. The girls, Jenna, Chloe, Stephanie, they said I've been taking you for granted, that you're so comfortable you don't even see me anymore. They said the best way to wake a marriage up, to make a husband appreciate what he has, is to make him think he might lose it. A little jealousy, a little competition. It's like couples therapy, but faster." I stared at her. The words were English. I understood each one individually, but together they formed a noise I couldn't process. David is an actor from Chloe's gym. I paid him $300 per date. The lingerie was a prop, I never even wore it. The late nights were just me at the movies by myself or having dinner with the girls. We were so careful. We kept waiting for you to confront me, to get all passionate and possessive, but you just shut down. You didn't do anything. We had to keep escalating to get a reaction. Her smile was pleading now, searching my face for the response she'd scripted in her head. The one where I sweep her into my arms, tell her how much I love her, how I'll never take her for granted again. The rom-com ending. "Maya." My voice was calm. Too calm. The calm of a man standing in the rubble of his life, counting his losses. "You spent 3 weeks pretending to cheat on me. A fake affair. It wasn't real. You came home smelling of another man's cologne. You bought lingerie you never wore for me. You lied about where you were, who you were with, what you were doing. You watched me spiral, watched me stop sleeping, stop eating, stop functioning, and you kept going." Her smile finally died. "We didn't think you'd take it so seriously. We thought you'd get angry, fight for me. We didn't think you'd just accept it. So this is my fault. I didn't react correctly to your psychological operation. Don't twist my words. I'm saying we misjudged how you'd respond. But now you know the truth. It was all for you, to make our marriage stronger." I stood up. The chair scraped against the floor, a sound like something breaking. "I'm going to stay at a hotel tonight. I need to think." "Think about what?" "There's nothing to think about." She was on her feet now, panic finally breaking through her script. "Liam, it was a joke, a stupid, harmless joke. You're not really going to punish me for trying to save our marriage, are you? I looked at her, really looked, and saw a stranger. A woman so disconnected from reality that she'd convinced herself cruelty was romance, manipulation was love. You didn't try to save our marriage, Maya. You tried to test it. And it failed. I walked out. Behind me, I heard her start to cry. The sound followed me to the car, into the elevator of a downtown hotel, through the sleepless night that followed. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I was past feeling anything except the cold, clarifying certainty of what I had to do next.
Sarah Kincaid had been my lawyer for 7 years, but only in the context of corporate disputes and contract negotiations. She was 53, divorced twice, and possessed of a bone-deep cynicism about human nature that made her exceptionally good at her job. I told her everything. From the dinner party to the PI report to Maya's confession, which I'd recorded on my phone the moment I sat her down at the kitchen island. Some survival instinct I didn't know I possessed had kicked in, and I'd hit record before saying a word. Sarah listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her leather chair and let out a low whistle. This is remarkable, in the worst possible way. She tapped her manicured nails on the desk. She admitted to all of this willingly? Proudly. She thought I'd be relieved. She's an idiot. Sarah held up a hand. Sorry, unprofessional. But legally, this is a gift. This isn't just irreconcilable differences. This is mental and emotional cruelty conducted as a calculated campaign over weeks. It completely undermines any position she might try to take in negotiations. I don't want to punish her. I just want out. Understood. But out looks different when you have evidence like this. We move fast. We file before she has time to spin the narrative. We control the story from the beginning. We filed on a Thursday. The papers were served to Maya at her office in front of her colleagues because Sarah believed in the strategic value of humiliation. I didn't argue. I was past caring about Maya's dignity. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Maya called 47 times in the first 24 hours. I let them all go to voicemail. The messages evolved in predictable stages: confusion, anger, bargaining, despair. Liam, call me. I don't understand what's happening. This is ridiculous. You're being a child. Call me. Okay, I'm sorry. I said I'm sorry. What more do you want? Please, please, I can't breathe. Please call me. Her friends took over when she ran out of words. Jenna called first, her voice sharp enough to draw blood. You're being a fucking child, Liam. We were trying to help her. You're the one turning this into a federal case over a joke. It was a prank, right, Jenna? Just a funny little joke. So you'll think it's hilarious when I send your number to every Scientology recruitment center in Manhattan and sign you up for Jehovah's Witness visits and post your address on Craigslist as a free puppy giveaway. I hung up. She called back 7 times. I didn't answer. Chloe tried a different approach. You have to understand your role in this, Liam. You forced her into this position. If you'd been more attentive, more romantic, more present, she wouldn't have felt the need to test you. This is on you too. The words landed like cold water. Not because they hurt, but because they revealed something essential about the women Maya had chosen as her advisors. They genuinely believed that love was a transaction, that attention was something to be extracted through manipulation, that the person you married was an adversary to be managed rather than a partner to be trusted. Stephanie sent a long email. I deleted it unread. On the 5th day, Maya showed up at my office. She looked terrible, pale and thin, with dark bruises under her eyes and a tremor in her hands that hadn't been there before. The glow was gone. The performance was over. What remained was just a woman who'd made a catastrophic mistake and couldn't understand why she couldn't undo it. 5 minutes, the receptionist said. She won't leave. I went down to the lobby. When Maya saw me, her face crumpled with relief. Liam, oh God, Liam. She reached for me. I stepped back. Her hands dropped to her sides. The papers, she said. You can't mean it. We need to talk about this. Work through it. There's nothing to work through. I made a mistake. A terrible, stupid mistake. But it wasn't infidelity. It wasn't betrayal. It was a misguided attempt to fix something I thought was broken. That's not worth throwing away 6 years. You spent 3 weeks systematically dismantling my trust. You watched me suffer and kept going. You lied to my face every single day. And when I caught you, your first reaction wasn't remorse, it was satisfaction that your test had worked. I didn't. You showed me exactly who you are, Maya. Who you're capable of being. The woman who could do that to someone she claims to love. I don't know her, and I don't want to. She started crying. Real tears, not the performative kind. They cut tracks through her makeup, dripped off her chin. I'll do anything. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. I'll cut off Jenna and Chloe and Stephanie. I'll never speak to them again. Just please, please don't do this. It's already done. I walked away. Her sobs followed me to the elevator, through the closing doors, into the silence of my new life. The divorce was finalized on a gray Tuesday in March, 6 months after that dinner party. 6 months of lawyers and negotiations and the strange, hollow ritual of dividing a life into columns. Yours, mine, ours. Maya's lawyer tried to argue that the test was a misguided attempt at marital improvement, not cruelty. Sarah played the recording. The judge, a woman in her 60s with tired eyes and the weary patience of someone who'd seen every possible way human beings could hurt each other, listened without expression. When it was over, she looked at Maya. You were blessed with a husband who trusted you completely, and you decided that wasn't enough. You needed proof of something that can't be proven, that you were loved, that you were valued, that you were safe. So you manufactured a crisis to test those things. And in doing so, you destroyed them. Maya cried. I felt nothing. The settlement was fair. More than fair. I didn't want the house. Too many memories embedded in the walls. I didn't want the joint accounts or the furniture or the wedding gifts we'd never returned. I wanted my half of the equity and my freedom. Sarah negotiated both. The coven imploded beautifully. Jenna's latest boyfriend, a gentle accountant named Peter who'd been seeing her for 8 months, found out about her role in the prank. When she tried to pull a similar test on him, showing up late from work, being vague about her whereabouts, he didn't get jealous. He got his things from her apartment and left. I don't need a partner who's constantly checking to see if I'll fail, he told her. I need one who assumes I won't. Chloe's ex-husband used the story in their custody battle. His lawyer argued that a woman who'd advise a friend to psychologically torture her spouse wasn't fit to make decisions about a child's emotional well-being. He got primary custody. Chloe's visits were supervised. Stephanie just faded. Her brand of bitter wisdom, once sought after by other wounded women, was now recognized as poison. The invites stopped. The calls stopped. She became a cautionary tale instead of a guru. I heard all of this through mutual acquaintances. I didn't seek it out, but I didn't look away either. There was a certain cold satisfaction in watching the architects of my destruction face consequences. But satisfaction isn't healing. And revenge, however sweet, doesn't fill the empty spaces. I moved into a loft in Dumbo, high ceilings, exposed brick, windows that faced the bridge. The silence was overwhelming at first. 6 years of shared sounds. The creak of Maya's side of the bed, the hum of her hairdryer, the rhythm of her breathing in the dark, replaced by nothing. I'd lie awake and listen to the traffic and wonder if I'd made a mistake. But I hadn't. I knew I hadn't. The loneliness of being alone was nothing compared to the loneliness of being with someone who saw you as a subject to be tested. Maya tried to see me one last time. She waited outside my building on a rainy Sunday, huddled under an umbrella that wasn't keeping her dry. When I walked out for coffee, she was there. I'm in therapy, she said. Real therapy, not with Jenna and Chloe, with an actual professional. I'm trying to understand why I did it. The pressure from them, my own insecurities, the way I was taught that love requires constant vigilance. I'm not making excuses. I'm trying to understand. I stopped. The rain hammered the pavement between us. That's good, Maya. I hope it helps you. It is. It's helping me see things I couldn't see before, like how I was so afraid of losing you that I created the very thing I feared. like how I confused control with love. She took a breath. I'm not asking you to take me back. I know that's not possible. But I'm asking, can you forgive me? The rain fell. The traffic hissed past. I looked at this woman I'd loved, this stranger I'd married, and searched for the anger I'd carried for so long. It was still there, but diminished, buried under layers of time and distance. Forgive you? My voice was quiet against the rain. Maybe, someday. For my own sake, I hope I can. But forgiveness isn't trust, Maya, and it isn't a return to what we were. That person I was, the one who trusted you completely, without question, without reservation. You killed him. Not through infidelity, but through the slow poison of making me doubt my own reality. I can forgive you for that, but I can never be him again. Her face crumpled. Liam, please. I don't hate you. That's the worst part. I feel nothing. You spent weeks pretending to be someone who would betray me, and I believed it. I believed you were capable of that. And now that I know it was a lie, it doesn't change the fact that you were capable of it. You wrote that character. You directed that performance. You inhabited it so completely that for 3 weeks you became a stranger to me. How do I unsee that? How do I forget the face of the woman who watched me suffer and kept going? She didn't have an answer. Neither did I. I walked past her into the rain and didn't look back. It's been 18 months. I'm in a new place now, literally and figuratively. The loft in Dumbo became a home instead of a refuge. I filled it with books and art and a ridiculously overpriced espresso machine that makes mornings feel like a ritual instead of an obligation. I'm seeing someone. Her name is Elena. She's an architect, 41, with steady hands and a laugh that sounds like surprise, like she's just discovered something delightful about the world. We met at a gallery opening. She was there for the wine. I was there for a friend's exhibit. We talked for 3 hours without noticing the time. She knows about Maya. I told her on our 4th date, over dinner at a quiet restaurant in Brooklyn. I laid it all out, the dinner party, the test, the months of unraveling. She listened without interrupting, without judging, without the reflexive defensiveness I'd come to expect from people who heard the story. That's terrifying, she said when I finished. Not the affair part. The part where someone you love can decide you need to be tested. Can decide your feelings are data points instead of, feelings. That's exactly it. She reached across the table and took my hand. I don't test people, Liam. If I'm worried about something, I ask. If I need something, I say it. It's not always comfortable, but it's honest. I don't think I could do anything else at this point. Good, she squeezed my hand. Neither could I. We've been together for 8 months now. It's not the breathless, all-consuming love I had with Maya in the beginning. It's better. It's the kind of love that builds slowly, that checks in, that leaves space for doubt and fills it with conversation instead of suspicion. Last week, I ran into Jenna at a coffee shop in the West Village. She looked diminished, the sharp edges worn down by time and, I guessed, the accumulated weight of lonely nights. We made awkward small talk about the weather, about mutual acquaintances, about nothing. As I was leaving, she stopped me. We really thought we were helping her. Her voice was different, softer, less certain. We honestly believed we were doing a good thing, protecting her from the pain we went through. It never occurred to us that we were just spreading it. I looked at this woman who had, in her own twisted way, set a bomb in the middle of my life. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt something closer to pity. No, I said. You didn't think you were helping her. You thought you were protecting her from the pain you couldn't process, but you didn't teach her how to spot an enemy. You taught her how to treat her best friend like one. You weaponized her love and aimed it at me because that's what someone did to you, and you never learned any other way. Jenna's eyes filled with tears. She didn't try to stop them. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Me too. I walked away and I didn't look back, but I carried the weight of that moment with me, the recognition that the women who'd destroyed my marriage weren't monsters. They were just broken people passing their brokenness along like an heirloom no one wanted. That night, I told Elena about the encounter. We were on her couch, her feet in my lap, a documentary playing unwatched on the screen. "Do you think she meant it?" Elena asked. "The apology? Maybe, probably, but meaning it and undoing it are different things." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Maya had just talked to you? If instead of staging a production, she'd just said, 'I'm feeling insecure, I need more from us'?" Every day for the first year. Now, not as much. It's not a useful question. She didn't talk to me. She tested me. And the test worked, just not the way she expected. Elena laced her fingers through mine. "I'm glad it worked the way it did. Not for her. For us. If she hadn't been so spectacularly stupid, you'd still be with her. And I'd never have met you." I kissed her forehead, her cheek, her lips. "Me neither." Later, lying in the dark with her breathing soft beside me, I thought about the question I'd been asked 100 times since the divorce. How could she do that? How could anyone think that was okay? And I finally understood the answer. It wasn't about me. It was never about me. It was about a woman so afraid of loss that she created it. It was about friends so broken by their own failures that they couldn't imagine a love that didn't require proof. It was about a culture that tells us love is something to be won, tested, defended, never something to be simply trusted. The reason their marriages failed wasn't because their husbands were all bad men. It was because they approached love not as a garden to be nurtured, but as a fortress to be defended. They spent their lives scanning the horizon for invaders, testing the walls, setting traps for the people inside. And in the end, they blew the whole thing up themselves. Then they stood in the rubble, wondering why no one wanted to come in. I closed my eyes and listened to Elena breathe. Steady, reliable, real. No tests, no games, no scripts, just us. And for the first time in years, I slept without dreaming of smoke and shattered glass.
Her name was Clara, and for 5 years, she was the sun I orbited around. We met in the chaos of a Bushwick open mic night. She was a photographer, all sharp angles and sharper opinions, and I was a data architect, a builder of invisible structures. We made sense in a way that felt destined. Our love was a Polaroid picture, vibrant, immediate, and deceptively permanent. Our families adored the picture. My parents, Linda and Robert, were Midwestern transplants who'd found God and financial stability in a Jersey suburb. Clara's family, the Morettis, were loud, Bronx-born, and ran a successful deli. The wedding was a 2-day fusion of potluck and catered elegance. We were the proof that opposites not only attract, but thrive. The first crack appeared a year in, hairline and easy to ignore. We were at my parents' house for Sunday dinner. My mom had made her famous meatloaf. "So Elias," my dad started, wiping his mouth with a napkin. "Clara mentioned you two are thinking about a new car? That Honda's got a lot of miles." I glanced at Clara. She smiled, a little too brightly. "It's just an idea, Bob. Elias's commute is brutal. We were thinking a sensible SUV." "A sensible SUV is a $9,000 sensible SUV, I said, trying to keep it light. "And we're not thinking about it. Clara's thinking about it." Clara's fork clinked against her plate. "Elias, we talked about this. A car is an investment. A car is a depreciating asset. My IRA is an investment." I turned to my dad. "She's been looking at Mercedes G-Wagons." My mom's eyes widened. Clara's jaw tightened. "It's a pre-owned G-Wagon, Linda. There's a difference. Elias is just being dramatic. I'm being fiscally responsible. There's a difference," I countered. My dad, ever the peacemaker, chuckled. "Ah, the first financial fight. We had those. Just don't let it fester." But it did fester. It was never just the car. It was the apartment she wanted in the city, the necessary renovation of our perfectly good kitchen, the once-in-a-lifetime trip to Iceland. Her spending felt less like enjoyment and more like a performance, a desperate need to project an image of a life we couldn't quite afford. I was the boring, responsible husband, the human embodiment of a spreadsheet, clipping the wings of a beautiful bird. The cracks spread. Late nights at the studio became more frequent. Her phone, once left face up on the counter, was now always face down, a silent, glowing accusation. When I'd ask about a shoot, her answers became clipped, professional. Just a corporate client, very demanding. One Tuesday, I came home early with her favorite soup from a deli downtown, hoping to bridge the growing distance. I found her in the shower, her phone on the bedside table. It buzzed with a text from a contact named D. The preview read, "Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you." Same time Thursday, the world didn't shatter. It didn't even spin. It just went completely silent, like someone had hit a mute button on my life. I stood there holding the warm soup, staring at the screen until it went dark. When she came out, wrapped in a towel, I was sitting on the edge of the bed. "Hey, you're home early," she said, her voice light, unburdened. I just looked at her. "Who's D?" For a microsecond, her mask slipped. A flicker of panic, quickly smoothed over by practiced indignation. She snatched the phone from the nightstand. "You went through my phone? You're checking up on me now? Wow, Elias. Just, wow." She laughed, but it was hollow. "D is Damien. He's a stylist for a big campaign I'm shooting. We're just friends. His text said he can't stop thinking about you. He's flamboyant. That's how he talks to everyone. Oh my God, you're being so insecure right now. Is this what our marriage has come to? You spying on me because you're paranoid?" She was dressed now, attacking. It was always her best defense. I was the boring, controlling husband. It was a role she'd written for me, and now she was forcing me to play it. I wanted to scream, to throw the soup at the wall, but I just felt tired, hollow. "Get out," I said. "What?" "Get out of our bedroom. I can't look at you right now." She huffed, grabbed a pillow, and stormed to the guest room. The victor of an argument I hadn't even been allowed to fight. The next 3 months were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Clara didn't just deny the affair, she weaponized my confusion. She started coming home later, smelling of expensive perfume and city smoke. When I asked, she'd sigh, "It was a late edit session, Elias. You wouldn't understand. It's not a 9-to-5 data job." Then, the narrative shifted. I'd find a receipt for a fancy dinner for two in her coat pocket, and she'd look at it with wide-eyed innocence. "Oh, that. I had a quick bite with a friend from Pratt. I must have grabbed the wrong receipt." She began pointing out how distant I was, how preoccupied. She'd cry to my mother on the phone, her voice a fragile whisper that carried through the walls. "He's so cold, Linda. I don't know what I did. He's always on his computer, he never wants to go out." My mom started calling me. "Elias, honey, is everything okay? Clara sounds so sad. You need to be more present. A wife needs attention." The coup de grace came on a Thursday night. She'd told me she was going to a gallery opening in Chelsea. I, a fool, decided to try one last time. I'd make a romantic gesture, show up with flowers, surprise her. I found the gallery easily enough. I scanned the crowd, flowers in hand, feeling like a hopeful teenager. I didn't see her. I walked through the entire space, then circled the block. And there, on a quiet side street, I saw them. Her Saab was double-parked, engine running. In the front seat, she was locked in a deep, passionate kiss with a man I didn't recognize. It wasn't a peck, it was the kind of kiss that belonged in our bedroom. I didn't move. I just watched. The anger I'd expected didn't come. Instead, a profound, icy clarity settled over me. I wasn't the bad guy. I wasn't paranoid. I was a man holding irrefutable gaslight-proof evidence. I walked back to my car, drove home, and packed a bag. I was in a hotel by midnight. The next day, I filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. I couldn't even bring myself to mention the affair. What was the point? The truth was a pebble I was about to throw into a lake of lies. When I told my parents, sitting in their living room, my mom just shook her head. "Elias, you're throwing away a perfectly good marriage. She's a wonderful girl. You're under so much stress at work, you're not thinking clearly. Have you considered couples therapy?" "Mom, she's cheating on me, I saw her." My dad shifted uncomfortably. "Now son, let's not make accusations we can't prove. People in love can misinterpret things." That was it. The moment I realized the truth didn't matter. The picture they loved was more important than the reality I was living. My sister Jenna texted me a single eye roll emoji. The family consensus was clear. Elias, the rigid, boring data guy, had finally snapped. The divorce was a gray, joyless transaction conducted through lawyers. Clara played the part of the aggrieved wife perfectly. She kept the apartment, the car, and a significant chunk of my savings. I let her. I just wanted it to be over. I wanted the bleeding to stop. 92 days after the judge signed the decree, I was doom scrolling through Instagram in my sterile new one-bedroom. A mutual friend had posted a photo. It was from a chic, minimalist wedding, and there she was, Clara, in a simple white slip dress, beaming up at a man, the same man from the car. The caption read, "Congratulations to the newlyweds, Clara and Derek. Shawkins, happily ever after. 3 months. She had married the man she was cheating on me with 3 months after our divorce was finalized. The math was brutally simple. The affair had started long before she'd accused me of being paranoid. The narrative of my failure had been constructed to justify her betrayal. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Saw the news about Clara. We're so happy for her. She looks like she's finally found someone who can make her happy. Maybe this will be a learning experience for you, Elias." I didn't respond. I just stared at the photo. The Polaroid perfect picture of my marriage hadn't just faded, it had been a lie from the start, a forgery, and everyone I loved had chosen to believe the forgery over the truth. I felt the last thread connecting me to them snap. It wasn't anger, it was a clean, surgical severance. They were no longer my parents, she was no longer my sister, they were just people who had presided over a mockery of my life and cheered for my executioner.
My phone buzzed incessantly for a week after that. Calls from my mom, texts from my dad, a few venomous ones from Jenna. "You're being a child. Mom is crying. Call her." I ignored them all. Their voices, once the background music of my life, became a noise I needed to cancel. I retreated into my work. I built data fortresses for companies, and for myself, I built a fortress of silence. I deleted my social media apps. I changed my number. The old Elias, the one who craved their approval, who needed the family dinner on Sundays, that man was gone. Buried under the wreckage of my marriage. Then, 6 months into my self-imposed exile, I met Maya. It was at a coffee shop. She was a graphic designer, with kind, intelligent eyes that didn't try to perform or impress. She was reading a worn copy of a sci-fi novel I loved. I made a dorky comment about it. She laughed, a real, unforced sound that felt like the first warmth I'd felt in years. Our relationship was built in the quiet spaces. We didn't perform love, we lived it. We talked about everything and nothing. We cooked terrible meals together. We went for long walks where the silences weren't awkward but comfortable. She was an anchor in a world that had made me feel adrift. For the first time, I understood that love wasn't a feverish high. It was a steady, warming flame. When I told her about my past, she didn't offer platitudes. She just listened, held my hand, and said, "That's monstrous, Elias. I'm so sorry you went through that alone." A year after we met, I asked her to marry me. Not in a grand public gesture, but on a quiet Tuesday, watching the sunset from our fire escape. She said yes. And 3 months later, she told me she was pregnant. The news should have been pure, unadulterated joy. And it was, until the thought crept in, cold and unwanted. My family doesn't know. They don't know about Maya. They don't know about this baby. And if they did, they'd find a way to ruin it. The thought wasn't paranoia. It was a scar. I knew their playbook. They'd love the new baby, the new picture. And in doing so, they'd find a way to worm back in, to paint me as the villain who kept their grandchild from them. I couldn't let that happen. For Maya, for our child, for the ghost of the man I used to be. I called my lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Patricia who had handled my divorce. "Patricia," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I need you to draft a letter, a cease and desist." Sitting in Patricia's office, looking at the crisp, white paper, felt more empowering than any screaming match ever could. The legalese was a cold, precise weapon. "This letter serves as formal notification that you are hereby directed to cease and desist all forms of communication with Elias Vance, his spouse, Maya Vance, and any and all future offspring." It's strong, Patricia said, adjusting her glasses. It states your intention for permanent non-contact. It legally puts them on notice that any attempt to contact you or your family will be considered harassment and will be met with legal action, including a restraining order. I signed it. The scratch of the pen was the sound of the last door closing. The response was swift and volcanic. My father's lawyer sent a bewildered letter. My mother left a voicemail on Patricia's office phone, her voice a hysterical wail. A cease and desist? To his own mother? What has that woman done to him? We just want to talk to our son. This is kidnapping. This is elder abuse. Jenna found my new email address somehow. Her emails were a symphony of fury. You're a sociopath. Mom is in therapy because of you. You think you're so above it all? We're your family. You can't just erase us. I didn't respond. I just archived them. They could yell into the void forever. The void wasn't listening anymore. Months passed. Maya's belly grew. We painted the nursery a soft, calming blue. We talked about names. We were building our own Polaroid, one that was honest and real. The drama of the Vance family felt like a movie I'd walked out of halfway through, until the movie came looking for me.
I was at a prenatal yoga class with Maya. Yes, I was that guy, and I loved it, when my phone vibrated with a call from an unknown number. Later, I learned it was the moment my mother, Linda, was on the phone with a local news station, crying about grandparents' rights, and the cruel son who had stolen her grandbaby away. The news didn't call me, but my father's lawyer did. Patricia called me the next day. Elias, she said, her voice tight with barely suppressed disgust. I just got off the phone with your father's attorney. They're threatening to file for visitation rights under the state's grandparent visitation statute. I was standing in our kitchen watching Maya chop vegetables for dinner. The evening sun was streaming in, lighting up the gold flecks in her hair. The contrast was sickening. On what possible grounds? I asked, my voice low. The usual playbook. They argue that denying them a relationship with their grandchild is harmful to the child's best interests. They'll claim they have a loving relationship to offer, that they're being unfairly prevented from it. They'll paint you as the unstable, vengeful party. I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. The unstable party, right? Patricia continued. They probably think they have a shot. These laws vary by state and they're tricky, but we have a mountain of evidence to the contrary. Your documented history of her infidelity, the smear campaign after the divorce, their refusal to believe you, the harassment. We have the cease and desist they ignored. We have their own angry emails and voicemails. We can prove that any relationship they claim to want is built on a foundation of lies and a complete lack of respect for you and your family. A judge isn't going to force a child into the middle of that toxic dynamic. They'd be forcing the child to have a relationship with people who actively work to destroy its father. I watched Maya place a gentle hand on her belly. The fear that had been a cold stone in my gut began to thaw. This wasn't love they felt. This was entitlement. They weren't fighting for a grandchild. They were fighting to reclaim a prop in their own narrative. The picture was incomplete without the beaming grandparents, and I had the power to deny them that picture forever. Okay, I said, the decision crystallizing into perfect hard certainty. Let them try. Let them bring their lawyers and their tears and their grandparents' rights. We'll bury them in the truth. Patricia's voice held a hint of a smile. That's what I like to hear. We'll file a preemptive response, a motion outlining the history of estrangement, the documented parental alienation, and the emotional distress their actions have caused you. We'll make it clear that their pursuit of this case is just another form of harassment. We'll request that any and all communication go through our offices, and we'll be ready to file for a restraining order the second they step out of line. We never saw a courtroom. The threat of it was enough. Their lawyer, after receiving Patricia's mountain of evidence, printouts of my mother's vitriolic texts to my old number, Jenna's emails, the timeline of Clara's remarriage, the private investigator's photos from the divorce proceedings that confirmed the affair, advised them to drop the case. Completely. Apparently their case for being loving, stable grandparents didn't hold up well against documented proof of them calling their son a sociopath and supporting the woman who had destroyed his marriage. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't the silence of anger or grief. It was the silence of defeat, the realization that their weapons, manipulation, guilt, public opinion, were useless against the cold, hard wall of legal precedent and documented reality. A few weeks later, a letter arrived, addressed in my father's shaky handwriting. I recognized it immediately. I almost threw it away, but Maya, ever the believer in closure, placed a hand on mine. "Read it," she said softly. "Then you'll know, and then you can let it go." I opened it. It was short. "Elias, we got the lawyer's letter. We understand now. We don't agree with your version of events, but we understand that you believe them to be true. We are your parents, and we love you. We always have. We would do anything to be a part of your life and our grandchild's life. Please, just give us a chance." Mom and Dad, I read it twice. I felt nothing, no anger, no pity, no triumph, just a vast, empty indifference. They still didn't get it. It wasn't about agreeing on a version of events. It was about their willingness to believe the worst of me, to abandon me at my lowest point, and to side with the person who had methodically broken me. This letter wasn't an apology. It was a negotiation. They were still trying to find a way back into the picture. I handed the letter to Maya. She read it, her brow furrowed. She looked at me, her eyes full of love and a quiet question. I took the letter, walked to the shredder in my home office, and fed it into the slot. The whir of the machine was the only sound. It felt final. It felt clean. I walked back to Maya, placed my hands on her belly, and felt a tiny, insistent kick against my palm. "They wanted a chance," I said, my voice quiet. "They had 5 years of my marriage. They had dozens of phone calls and Sunday dinners. That was their chance. They chose to believe a lie. They have to live with that choice." Maya just nodded, leaning her head against my chest. We stood there in the quiet of our home, the three of us, and for the first time in years, the silence felt like peace. The illusion was gone, and in its place was something far more precious, a reality built on truth.